us the mountains, These gave us the sky. Nightly when starlight enfolds us, peace is its lullaby.
Readings are from Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda, which are commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita, based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Living in the presence of God, truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 25, we read of a king, capitalized for the references to God, who welcomes certain devotees to the divine consciousness, saying, I was a-hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. The elect asked him when it was they had served him in these ways, and the king answered, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. To see God as residing in every human being, as indeed he does, is to open oneself to limitless opportunities for serving him. Paramahansa Yogananda, in Autobiography of a Yogi, described a saint who lived in this consciousness as the greatest man of humility I have ever known. He described a seemingly chance encounter with this saint. Another day found me walking alone near the Howrah Railroad station. I stood for a moment by a temple, silently criticizing a small group of men with drum and cymbals who were violently reciting a chant. How undevotedly they use the Lord's divine name in mechanical repetition, I reflected. My gaze was astonished by the rapid approach of Master Mahashaya. Sir, how come you here? The saint, ignoring my question, answered my thought. Isn't it true, little sir, that the beloved's name sounds sweet from all lips, ignorant and wise? He passed his arm around me affectionately. I found myself carried on his magic carpet to the merciful presence. If you would see God, watch for him everywhere. If you would hear his voice, listen for it in all sounds and also in their supporting silences. If you would know God, seek his wisdom behind merely human knowledge. The Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter states, "One who beholds my presence everywhere and all things dwelling equally in me, he never loses loving sight of me, nor I of him, through all eternity." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om.
My name is Manisha, and this is my husband, Dambara, and it's our joy to share this morning with you. Special welcome to our great friends from Camino Island, which is part of the Seattle Sangha. We're so happy to have you here. Your voices and musical instruments last night filled this room with so much beauty. Thank you for being here. Experiencing the presence of God can be a nebulous thing until you've...
Okay, hold on. I'm going to ask that you use the standing mic because it's distracting to my ears anyway. All that.
Okay. So experiencing the presence of God can be a little bit of a nebulous thing until you've had some of those experiences and actually recognize them for what they are. It can be sort of a mysterious feeling, and then once you recognize it for, oh my gosh, this is God, this is the divine that I'm in connection with, then it can become more reachable for you. If you know what it feels like, then you can get the little tiny shreds of it, and then you can let that grow, and you know where you're going with it once you've experienced it. This room is very rich in the presence of the divine because we've gathered here for so many years worshiping, and with the grace of our masters, and especially with the concert last night, this room is just rich with the presence of God. So when you can tune into that vibration, learn how to tune into that vibration, meditation is the perfect tool for learning how to tune into that spiritual vibration that brings you a connection with the divine, and then being able to extend that connection throughout the rest of your day, or even for 5 minutes after your meditation, or for 10 minutes after getting in your car to drive home after Sunday service. You learn how to sort of extend it into the rest of your life, and it slowly grows richer and richer. During my early days of Ananda, I'd only known about Ananda for, less than a year. And Dambara and I traveled to Assisi, Italy. It was the first time that we had spent more than 3 hours together, and we decided to take a month-long trip together. Just, it was the next step. So we went to Assisi, and we joined a small group of pilgrims from other countries for a tour titled In the Footsteps of St. Francis. So it was a 10-day tour, and we went in our small little van and our nice, friendly group, and we went to all of the different places near Assisi where St. Francis had spent time teaching, meditating, living, being with his brother monks, and imbuing the landscape with the presence of God and his vibration. So we had been traveling to all these different places, and I was so new to meditation. I didn't really think that I was qualified to go to these places and feel their depth. But actually, the depth that I found in those places was what gave me the ability to meditate deeply and really start to experience a connection with God, living in the presence of God. And every day we went out and explored the countryside and spent time in these holy places. And day after day, the presence of God became richer and fuller and more prevalent for me. And there was just so much beauty there in Assisi also. It was June, so when I would walk down the road from where our rooms were, it was about a half-mile walk to the retreat center, and there were wildflowers growing along the side of the road, and I'd pick the wildflowers and tuck them into my hat band, and then when we went to these holy places, I'd leave flowers on the altar or on a rock wherever we had spent time meditating, and it just became a way that I could extend that presence of God into everyday things. I also was so enchanted by the Fireflies that I had never experienced except at Disneyland in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, where they have these little mechanical fireflies blinking on and off. But here they were in real life, and they were so magical, these little tiny flashes of light that just drifted and blinked, and they were so gentle and sweet, and that added to the magic of the time in Italy. And then also the cuckoo birds. I'd never heard those except from the clocks, but here they were outside of our window, and they would just sing constantly, cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. And it was like the clocks were going on everywhere around us. I'd never experienced it in real life. So there were all these magical tidbits that were happening around me, and then going to these magical places. It's one of my most treasured memories, those 10 days in Assisi on that tour. And then maybe about 2/3 of the way through the tour, there was a visiting Swami who was traveling around the world from India, and he was carrying his master's sandals with him, and he was giving satsangs at all of these spiritual places and sharing his vibration and his guru's vibration with everybody. And I thought, I've never been to India. I'm sort of interested in what this is, but everybody else in the group said, no, I'm going to go home. And so I thought, oh, I'll stay, I'll go. So I went to the satsang in the temple, and it was so rajasic and cacophonous, and I'm sure that it uplifts people everywhere, but it wasn't what I had been building up over the last few days, and it just was jarring, and it frazzled me a little bit. So after about a half an hour, I very quietly slipped out the back and started through the temple, the anteroom in the temple, and then went outside and walked away from the retreat into pitch dark. I didn't have a flashlight. I was the only one out there. Everybody was either at the satsang or they were in bed already. So there I was, a half a mile of dark road that I had to traverse before I could find our rooms. So I could feel the pavement under my feet, and I shuffled along. And as my eyes adjusted to the dark, I could see the edge of the road, the shoulder, which was made up of white gravel. They have tons of white marble there, so they use crushed white marble under the roadbeds. And so there's this thin shoulder of white gravel. And so I could just barely see this faint difference in the white gravel and the black road. So I could just sort of like shuffle along this little ribbon, and I stumbled a couple of times, and I was so frazzled from the satsang, and I thought maybe I should just turn around and go back and knock on doors, find somebody who has a flashlight. This is too scary for me. And so I thought about doing that, but what I did instead is I started chanting, Shri Yogananda, guide to inner freedom, steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. And I just chanted that over and over again, and I was able to calm myself down, put aside the what ifs. I decided that I wasn't, in the worst case scenario, I would turn back and go find a flashlight, but I probably wasn't going to wander off into the far reaches of the earth, never to be seen again. It was going to be okay. I was either going to get there or I could go back. And I just was able to calm myself down and feel some of that joy that I'd been feeling over the last few days. So I kept chanting and shuffling along. And, you know, the road, it's a half a mile, and it has these two gentle curves. And then right at the second curve, that's where the driveway goes down to the lodge where our rooms were. And I wasn't sure if I'd gone through, because it was so dark and the curves are so gentle, I wasn't sure if I'd gone one curve or two curves or 7 curves. I didn't know where I was on the road, and I realized that I might, in fact, miss the driveway that led to the lodge where we were staying. And I kept chanting and was shuffling along, trying to decide if I should turn back or not. And then this firefly came out from the bushes or the darkness, and it just started drifting along, and it just cheered me up. I thought, there's one of my friends. I love you guys so much. You're so sweet, and you're just so gentle. And it just sort of drifted across, and we almost bumped into each other. And it just kept drifting past and sort of dipped down a little bit, and there was the driveway. So I knew that Master had sent me that firefly, and he'd said, here you go. This is from me. It's just for you. He could have sent a car with its headlights. That would have worked. Could have sent another person walking along, or the clouds could have opened up and some moonlight came through. But no, he sent me a firefly, because it was a special message for me from him. And it showed me where the driveway was. I would have walked past it, but there it was, right where the firefly showed me. So then I could walk down the white gravel of the driveway, and the firefly sort of drifted away, and its mission was finished, so it went about its business. And I could follow the white gravel all the way to our front door. And I opened the door into the hallway and walked inside and turned around. And just as I started to close the doors, the heaven opened up and a torrential rain just poured down. And I stood there and watched the fury of that storm for a couple of minutes and thought, this is just in case I didn't get the message that I'm loved and protected. The divine really wanted me to know that this was all just for me. So I closed the doors and went upstairs and had a peaceful night. And I was able to recapture that presence of God that guided me, protected me, and filled me with so much joy.
So I want to piggyback on that a little bit. This week's message is feeling the presence of God everywhere, and it's easy to think of that as looking outside and noticing God's presence. But I want to offer it as an exercise of feeling God's presence inside, as if God is acting through you, as if God is you, expressing through you. And I know that's words that we hear. Maybe you've had a feeling of this sometime, I don't know, but it's great giving these topics. You ought to give the topic next week, because then you just really think about it and you think, oh my gosh, I've got to say something, and you start like reflecting on it and actually practicing it during the week. So this has been something really useful to me, and I want to just pass it along as something that might be useful to you too to do during the coming week, which is, don't think of God as separate. Don't think of God as anything other than what's happening inside of you right now, in everything. And so make it real. You know, what's a challenging situation right now? Work, life, relationship, illness, Just any kind of challenge you can think of, or any joy that you're dealing with, whatever. Think of that not as, oh, this is a problem happening to me that shouldn't be happening, whatever, any of that stuff. You know, we keep hearing the terms about we should get outside of the ego and all that stuff, and it gets kind of mental. But the ego is simply the mistake of thinking that we're somehow separate, that we're somehow like a wave is separate from the whole ocean. And it's this great dream that God invented for whatever reason. You know, here we are. It's God's big Mercury retrograde. I think I'm separate from you, you know? It's like the ocean is saying, no, actually not, but it's just a great show, you know? But if ever we get into that thing of worrying about, oh, what would happen if? It's all, you know, if you really think about it, it's because I'm misidentifying myself as something small, smaller than who I really am. So just to be able to, first of all, recognize that, kind of remember, just in this season is perfect for that. There's just a magic in the air around Christmas time where suddenly the veils lift a little bit. You know, we just get inward more and we just see more. There's more light. There's more Christ consciousness shining through. It's a great time to just practice remembrance, God remembrance inside of us. So what would happen if it was actually God expressing joyfully through us in everything we're feeling? Even the challenges, maybe especially the challenges. There's something about that when we really step on the path, when we're devoted to God, when we really want to, you know, when, I don't know, it's kind of like if you want to climb the top of a mountain and you say, I'd really like to go to the top of that mountain. But do you want to do it on your own? No, because it's kind of dangerous if you don't know kind of the ropes and stuff. If it's, you know, like a technical thing, technical mountain. But if you really want to do it, you get a guide. And the guide shows you how and says, okay, here's the ropes, literally. You know, and here's how you do it. And here's the ice axe, you know, if it's got snow or ice on it. And here's how you operate that. And let's practice. And you fall down and you slide down the hill and you know, and you do it lovingly embraced by the guide. So whether that guide is your parents, your friends, when you just think of it as, oh yeah, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm learning how to do it. And then you practice it. So this is what the challenges are in our lives. They're us saying, I want to get to the top of that mountain. And it's going to be fun. It's not this awful, you know, thing. It's like people climb mountains or take hikes or get married or, you know, take a particular job or whatever they do just because they want to expand. And expansion is what it's about. Expansion from the little identity that's a mistake to something larger. Or people get pets for that reason too. You know, just how can you ignore this cute little puppy dog that's, you know, frolicking around? The more we can get outside of our own narrow confines and just kind of realize, oh, there's more to this. There's more to me. There's more to consciousness than what I've been looking at here. And just as our reading said, service is a great way to practice that. There's two ways, really. One is meditation, just making a habit twice a day, usually, at least, to just stop everything else that's distracting, stop everything else that's reaffirming that we're something separate, and just get into that space where we can take a deep breath, close our eyes, let our energy just get inside, and remember who we are. A great word, smriti, S-M-R-I-T-I, smriti, means, who knows what it means? What does it mean, Lorna? Divine remembrance. Just like, duh, you know, light going on. This is who I am. So meditation is one way of realizing that, and then serving others. We can be all caught up in our own little story, and then all of a sudden when a child comes to the mom and says, Mom, I need this, and the heart goes out, and you just, gee, what was that I was worrying about? You just forget it. You know, that little pain that I had or something is just like insignificant compared to helping somebody else. You've had that experience when somebody comes to you and asks directions or asks for help or guidance of any kind. It's just, it feels so much more expansive because it is. When we hear Jesus saying to other people, there's two really important laws And one of them is to love God with all your heart, all your energy, all your consciousness, all your remembrance, your smriti. He might have said that, we don't know. And the other is to love your neighbor as yourself. But that, what does that mean? To love your neighbor as yourself. To love your neighbor because that's who you are. You're not this, you're this. You are everyone out there that I'm looking at. I remember I was working at a department at Ananda, an accounting department, and there was a picture of us taken outside the building that we worked in. And I looked at the picture, and it just really struck me what do we do when we look at a group picture? We look at ourselves, usually. I don't know if you're just kind of normal, like I do, normal ego, like I have. You look at yourself, and you kind of check it out. And I just had the thought, what if I were to look at all the other people with just as much interest in self-identity as that picture of who I identified as Dambara? Wouldn't that be interesting? But why not? It's just a habit. We're just so used to kind of being close to this that we kind of don't really identify as much with others, but we can by practice. That's what serving others is all about. It's just being able to realize that there's other people out there, first of all, and then to just forget about yourself and realize that their concerns are just as important. And the more we practice that, the more fun it is. You'd think that, oh no, that's going to be an effort to help somebody else along with myself. That's the kind of first thing we react. But when we practice it, we realize, no, it's actually joyful. Why? Because it's expansive. And expansiveness is the purpose of everything we're doing. Everything. Whether it's spiritual path or not. Every human desire that we have, it's all for the purpose of expanding our horizons. Because we came from God, and we, as Saint, Anthony of the desert? Lord, we came from you, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you. You've made us from yourself. And that's the truth of it. That's the actual fact, is that everything around us, including us, is just an expression of God's love. So I invite you just to take every opportunity you can think of. Just the concert we had last night, hearing John Gladen stand up and sing, "Children of God, your time of trial has ended. See where the dawn irradiates the night. Lo, all your tears will rise like dew to the sun. Sorrows will turn to joy, your griefs to delight. Children, rejoice, for lo, the kingdom of God comes in full splendor. It needs but your sight. It needs just your smriti. It's there." Yogananda said that self-realization is always there with us. We don't need to pray that it comes to us, or that, whatever else he said. Lorna? Self-realization is knowing in all parts of body, mind, and soul that you are now in possession of the kingdom of God, that you need not pray that it come to you, that all you need to do is improve your knowing. So let's use this Christmas season as the opportunity to improve our knowing, to practice smriti. Are you going to go out shopping today? No, I think I'll stay home and practice smriti instead. Or go out shopping, but do it in God's joy. And I think during our announcements, we'll learn about an opportunity we have to do that right after service that really is practicing divine joy when you see all the fun stuff that's out there. So I'm going to end by reading some Whispers from Eternity that is a direct steal from Peter Copley reading this at meditation Saturday morning at Laurelwood, but it's just so perfect. Let me feel that thou and I art one. When the sparks of cosmic creation flew from under thy crucible of love, I danced with all the lights that heralded the coming of a myriad worlds. I am a little spark of thy joyous cosmic fire. O thou sun of life, as thy nectar poured into the little cups of human minds, filled with molten liquid of vital sparks, they thought to contain thy golden infinity in the smallness of their human feelings. In each fragile, undulating mirror of human flesh, I see reflected thy restless dance of omnipresent power. In the lambent waters of life, I behold thy ever-steady, almighty life. Teach me, Christ-like, by the power of concentration, to still the restless storms of desire raging on the lake of my mind. Stilling those waters, I lovingly behold thy unruffled face of cosmic stillness. Cause the little wave of my life to subside, that thy consciousness in me spread out to become thine own vastness. Let me feel my heart throbbing in thy breast, my feet moving with thy energy, thy breath breathing through mine, thy energy actively moving my arms, thy thoughts weaving all the thoughts in my brain. When I cry, thy soft sigh within me wakens me to thy joy. In thy playfulness, little bubble visions of thy creation float dancingly in the chamber of my dreams, which manifest in my sleep of delusion. Thy meteoric will courses through the skies of my own willpower. Make me feel that it is thou who art I. Oh, make me thyself, that I behold my little bubble of self ever floating in thee. Om. Peace. Amen.
Written by Swami Kriyananda, Life is a Quest for Joy.